I actually want to set up today by telling you a story real quick. So I played baseball all of my life, all right? Like ages 5 through my senior year of high school. I still love baseball. I believe baseball is the best, most perfect designed game ever created. And I know that, we got baseball fans in here? Oh, yes. How fun is it that the Dodgers are out? That makes me so happy. All right. I know at the same time there's a lot of you who disagree with me about baseball. That's fine. You're just wrong. Okay? Baseball is like the aged, refined bourbon of the sports world. All right? Football's like Coors Light. I don't know what soccer is. Soccer's like drinking a White Claw or something, but... To be fair, another reason I loved baseball growing up is because baseball was good for someone like me. Like, baseball's largely about reflexes and situational awareness, and so you didn't have to be tall and you didn't have to tackle anyone to play the game, neither of which I could do. But of all 13 or 14 years that I played baseball, to this day, there's only one game and one situation that I can remember like every single detail of. It was my favorite moment of my very illustrious athletic career. I want to share it with you now. All right, so this is freshman year of high school. In freshman year, I started on our baseball's JV team. We also had a small school, though, so I also sat the bench for our varsity team, just in case someone got injured or someone got sick or whatever. And in this particular game, I'm riding the bench on a varsity game, and we're playing our local rival. And we come out the game strong. In the first inning, we score like 6 runs right away. But over the next few innings, our team just keeps making stupid errors, and they're swinging to stuff like way outside the zone, and they just gave up, right? They started playing as if they had already lost, and I'm watching this whole thing, like excruciating thing happen from the bench, just groaning. All right, our rival crept back into the game. They take the lead. It's 7-6 now. And when that happened, our coach got furious. All right, and like most high school coaches, this guy ran hot to begin with, but he's very mad at us now. And so in between innings, he tells us all to sit down, and he's yelling, and he's stomping up and down the dugout, and he's red in the face, and he launches into this tirade. And he starts yelling at us. He starts this tirade by asking us the question, does anybody want to win this thing? Yeah, if you've played competitive sports growing up, you heard the same thing from all of your coaches. Does anybody want to win this thing? So coach launches into this tirade. He goes, does anybody want to win this thing? And he starts going on to his next sentence, but I'm a freshman, and my cognitive development is not completed yet. And so I can't tell the difference between a genuine question and a rhetorical question. And so he goes, does anybody want to win this thing? And he starts yelling about something else, and I awkwardly interrupt him, and I raise my hand, and I go, I do, coach. Everyone freezes and stares at me like I'm an idiot, because I am. And coach is staring at me, and after a minute, he just goes, what'd you say, Foote? Foote was my nickname on all my teams. He goes, what'd you say, Foote? And then I speak up again. Less confidently this time, but I go, I said I do, coach. I would like to win this game, sir. It's very awkward. And coach just stares at me for what feels like another couple decades with this like curious look on his face until he finally speaks up. And all he says is he goes, okay then, Foote, you're in for Gibson, and get ready because you're on deck. Now, yeah, looking back, I would not have done that. And also looking back, I understand that coach was trying to teach our team a lesson. All right, Gibson was a senior. Gibson was tall, and Gibson could tackle people, and he looked like he wanted to kill me. But basically, coach, what he was trying to tell our team was essentially, I'll sub in a freshman for one of our best players because all that matters is you have to want the thing if you want to play. All right? Again, I'm a freshman. I don't understand all that nuance, so I'm like, I just made varsity. This is awesome. It's the bottom of the ninth. All right, our first batter, he knocks a triple, right into the corner, and then it's my turn to hit, and I'm walking up to the box, and something happens, like fear crippling fear sets in, right? Because I'm like, holy crap, I just told our team that I was going to win this thing for them. If I strike out right now, it's going to be so embarrassing. They'll never stop talking about it. I got terrified. And if it wouldn't have been more embarrassing to just walk back to the dugout and say, never mind, coach, I would have done that. But instead, I had to overcome all of this fear and all of this pressure, and I had to just step into the box ready to swing. And what ended up happening, much to my surprise, is that I helped our team win the game. Thank you. I'll show you game film sometime. I get into the box, and my third base coach, he's tugging on his ear. That means sack bunt. And so I bunt, and I lay down this beautiful bunt, scores the tying run. I actually make it to first. I later steal second. I take third on an error, and then I get knocked in for the winning run. It was this awesome moment. Coach, shocked, right? Pretty sure he soiled himself. And then the whole team, it was awesome. They all chanted, "Footy, Footy," the whole bus ride home, everyone except for Gibson. It was awesome. Now, side note, I think it's hilarious that I told you a sports story where I'm the hero. I promise that's the only one I've got. Sometime I'll share much more embarrassing stories with you about my incredibly short football career or my surprisingly long basketball career. But there's a point to this story, and the point is that baseball is a lot like life, right? Just like any other good sport. And this specific game is a lot like what I want to talk about today, and it's because our team was defeated. And once that mentality of defeat sets in, if you don't actively battle it, you start playing like you've already lost. And you start making dumb mistakes, and you lose focus, and you convince yourself that you just can't win this one. And of course, once you start playing like you've already lost, what happens is you end up losing. And so our coach had to take a little mini timeout, and he had to give us the speech that coaches have passed down from generation to generation all over the world. He had to shake us out of the mentality of defeat and ask us, does anybody want to win this thing? And the second I raised my hand, he said, okay then, get up. Get up off the bench and get into the game. And this weekend, we're going to take a timeout. All right, for just 1 week before we jump right into the next series, because I want us to ask ourselves the very same question. Does anybody want to win this thing? Now, when I say that, what I mean is, does anybody want to win at dating, for example, and relationships and sexuality? And do you want to win at marriage and parenting or your career? Or let's just jump right to the most important thing, the thing that affects everything else. Does anybody want to win at this whole following Jesus thing? And I think most of us would say yes. Right? We go, yes, I do. I want to win. But honestly, when I look around at the world and when I look at parts of my life, so I'm guilty of this too. When I look around, I mostly see people they've gained a few losses, you took a few L's, and you've slipped into the mentality of defeat, and you've started playing as if you've already lost the thing. And we're not sitting on the bench like in my story. Instead, we're sitting on the couch with our phones or with our TVs, and we're telling ourselves, I don't even know how to begin to fix my marriage or my addiction or my loneliness, and so I'm just gonna mail it in, right? I'd rather binge watch Netflix until I feel numb than figure out how to begin winning at my marriage. And then we lose focus, and we start making dumb mistakes, and we convince ourselves that we just can't win this thing, and so we're sitting on the couch, and we're playing like we've already lost the thing. We gave up. And at the same time, I get it. Because it's terrifying to raise your hand and say, put me in, coach. What I mean is it's scary to tell your spouse, for example, and go, hey, listen, we've been drifting apart, and I haven't done anything about that, but I want to get back in the game, and I want to help our team, like Team Ben and Allie. I want our team to win. That's scary. It comes with fear. It comes with all of a sudden a pressure that you got to deliver, man. It's scary. And the alternative is easy, right? The alternative is just sit the bench. Keep sitting on the couch, playing like you've already lost the thing, and blaming everyone else other than yourself for the fact that your marriage or your sex life or your parenting or whatever are losing. And I don't know about you, but I would much rather risk fear by jumping into the game than risk failure by sitting on the bench. And so I'll ask you one more time, does anybody want to win this thing? Oh. Well, then I'll pray and go home, guys. I wrote a whole talk here to convince you of that. There's this time where Jesus asks us the same exact question. He phrases it a little differently for us. But I want to share this moment with you. This moment happens when he performs a miracle in John chapter 5. And so let's kind of read through this story together. We'll break it down as we go. Here's how the story starts. John chapter 5, verse 1 starts like this. So sometime later, Jesus went up to Jerusalem for a feast of the Jews. Now, there is in Jerusalem, near the sheep gate, a pool, which in Aramaic is called Bethesda, and which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. And here at this pool, a great number of disabled people used to lie, the blind, the lame, and the paralyzed. Now, a few weeks ago, we talked about Jesus' parables, all right, and how his parables are fictional stories that contain a spiritual truth. And Jesus' miracles work the same way. His miracles are out-of-this-world illustrations that illustrate a spiritual truth. And so we're going to break this story down to figure out what is the spiritual truth that Jesus is teaching us in the miracle that he's about to perform. And so let's start with our setting. All right, we've got a pool, a public pool called Bethesda. And at this pool, people in need of healing would sit and chill by this pool all day long, every single day. Why? Well, when you dig into the history of this pool called Bethesda, you learn that there was a rumor at the time. And as rumor had it, once every now and then, like a couple times a year, once every now and then, the waters of this pool would stir and foam and bubble and slosh around for no good reason, all on their own. And whenever that happened, the first person into the pool would be healed of any and all physical ailments. That was the rumor. All right, so these people sitting at the pool of Bethesda, they're waiting for a magical fix to their problem. Right? They're basically crossing their fingers and they're wishing upon a star, and it sounds ridiculous, but before we laugh at them, we have to realize we do the exact same thing today. You know, for example, we've got multiple credit cards and we keep spending this magical money that we didn't earn to begin with, and then we miss a few payments, and that's when you really start to feel that interest rate, but then we keep swiping the card anyway. Why? Well, because it'll all work out eventually, right? That's what we tell ourselves. Like, we're crossing our fingers and wishing upon a star. Like, one day I'm going to win the lottery, and the first thing I'm going to do is pay off all of this debt, right? That's what I tell myself. Like, if I win the lottery, I'm going to become very responsible with my money all of a sudden. Right? Or another example, like our sex life is a train wreck, and we know it. All right, we've been hurt, or we've hurt other people, and we can't count the number of people we slept with, but we can count the number of people we've loved. It's 0. But what do? We just keep swiping right? We're just crossing our fingers and wishing upon a star, like one day Tinder will help me find my soulmate. And it's not true. We might not be sitting by a magical pool called Bethesda, but we're doing the same thing. In different areas of our lives, we are crossing our fingers and we're waiting for some magical fix. Maybe this will all work itself out on its own. Maybe something or someone else will magically fix these problems of mine. That's what's happening at the pool of Bethesda. It's a group of people who are in the mentality of defeat. They have suffered for a long time, and they don't know what to do about it anymore. And so they've started playing like they've already lost. They're crossing their fingers, wishing on a star. Maybe there's a magical fix for my problems. All right, back to our story. So one who was there had been an invalid for 38 years. So this guy's been wishing on a star for a long time. And when Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, Jesus asked him, "Do you want to get well?" Now this moment is fascinating to me, because I'm pretty sure it is the only time that Jesus asks someone if they want to see a miracle in their life. I mean, every other time, he either just performs a miracle without asking, or most often, the person who is suffering asks Jesus, "Hey, Jesus, could you heal me?" But in this case, Jesus is the one who asks, and he goes, "Do you want to get well? Do you want to win this thing?" Now, this guy has been sick for 38 years, and so the answer is, of course, yes. Yes, I want to get well. At the same time, though, this can't be a dumb question from Jesus. Jesus never asks dumb questions. He asks meaningful questions. And so why is this question meaningful? Well, remember, he's standing at this public pool and he's surrounded by this crowd of people who are defeated and they're playing like they've lost and they're waiting for a magical fix to their problems. And so when Jesus asks this, I think what he's implying is, do you want to get well? Because it doesn't look like it by the way that you're living your life. Do you want to win this thing? Because it doesn't look like it by the way that you're sitting the bench. Next part, here's how the man replies. Sir, the invalid replied, I've got no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. Like when I'm trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me. This is a very common response for someone who feels defeated and is playing like they've already lost. When confronted with the fact that your life isn't doing too well, you want to respond with blame. This guy plays the blame game. My life isn't what I want it to be, but that's not my fault. And honestly, we see the blame game everywhere right now. Just get on Facebook. All right? I got on Facebook the other day and I saw, this is a true example, in like one 5-minute session of scrolling through Facebook. I don't know why I do it to myself, but I'm doing it. And I saw COVID, as an example, was blamed on Trump. It was blamed on Biden. It was blamed on unvaccinated people. It was blamed on vaccines. It was blamed on China. And in one case, it was blamed on the state of Florida. That's the only one where I'm like, maybe. Got some strange rangers down there. We've got this society that's like conditioned to point fingers at other people and other movements and other political parties and blame other people for their own problems because it's easy to sit the bench and blame other people. And it's risky to get up off the bench and jump into the game and do something constructive with the problem that you're facing. But the blame game doesn't fix anything. And it doesn't help us find solutions, and it doesn't end in healing and unity. It keeps us separated and stuck, and I see the blame game everywhere, and I think it's important, and I think it's worth paying attention to. Have we let the blame game filter into our personal lives? Because the chance is, if you're playing the blame game all the time, you're probably playing like you've already lost. If you're saying stuff like, my marriage is on the ropes, but that's not my fault, that's her fault. Right? Or my anxiety's through the roof, but that's my kid's fault. And I'm exhausted and I'm burnt out, but that's my boss's fault. And I'm lonely and disconnected, but that's my generation's fault. To any of us playing the blame game right now, I would ask you the same question that Jesus asked. Do we want to get well? Because it doesn't look like it by the way that we're pointing fingers and blaming other people. And so Jesus says, do you want to get well? And the man responds with the blame game. He's not making Jesus' job any easier. But what's nuts is that even though this guy is defeated, he's playing to lose, he's waiting for a magical fix, and he's blaming other people for his problems, even though this guy's doing all of that, Jesus heals him anyway. Look at this, next verse. Then Jesus said to him, get up. Get up, pick up your mat, and walk. And at once, the man was cured, and he picked up his mat, and he walked. Remember, Jesus' miracles are out-of-this-world illustrations of spiritual truth. And here's the truth that I believe Jesus was communicating to that man and to the crowd at the pool of Bethesda, and he's communicating to us right now. The truth is, like the man in this story, you could, if you want, spend decades sitting on the couch, waiting for a magical fix to your marriage or parenting or sex life or financial trouble, you name it. More importantly, you could spend decades crossing your fingers and wishing upon a star and hoping that like your soul and your spirit and your entire life just bumble and stumble across some mysterious magical healing. Or you could just ask Jesus and be healed. The risky thing with asking Jesus is that he is not a magical fix either. He's not going to look at your life and go, oh, thanks for asking. Boop, now your marriage is perfect. That's not how he works. And he's always going to reply to us the same way he replied to this man. He's going to ask us the same question. Do you want to get well? Like, does anybody want to win this thing? And if you say yes, his reply is always the same. He's going to say, okay, then get up. Get up. Pick up your mat and start walking. Stop crossing your fingers, waiting for a magical fix. Stop pointing fingers, blaming other people for your life. Just get up. Jesus is saying, get off the couch and start living like I told you to, because I promise my way of life is simply better for you. Jesus is telling us, if you want to get well, get up. And to be clear, I'm not saying pull yourself up by your bootstraps and put a smile on your face even though nothing is okay. I'm not saying that. Instead, I'm saying get off the couch, stand up straight even though you feel defeated, and start walking, meaning take one step in the direction that you already know Jesus wants you to go. Take that first step in your marriage or parenting or friendships, whatever. You already know the one thing you could do today to start improving that part of your life and being more like Jesus. So do it. If you want to get well, get up. Stop playing like you've lost and start playing to win. There's this great moment where a guy named Paul, he says the exact same thing. He says, play to win. And he says this in a letter that he wrote to a bunch of Jesus followers who lived in a place called Corinth. And Corinth was home to the Isthmian Games. At this time, the Isthmian Games are second only to the Olympics in like popularity and esteem and all that. And so Paul knows he's talking to sports fans, and so he uses a sports metaphor. And he says this, he goes, do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. Paul says if life is like a race, you should play to win. All right? Okay, how do we play to win? Well, I know it's certainly not by sitting on the sidelines with the mentality of defeat, blaming other people for why you're sitting this one out. Instead, it's going to take work, which is exactly what Paul says next. Next verse, he says, everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. All right, so playing to win is going to take training. He goes, they do it to get a crown that will not last. You would get like a floral wreath if you won an Isthmian game. So he goes, they do it to get a crown that won't last. We do it to get a crown that will last forever. Like a life with Jesus is an eternal prize. And then he goes, therefore, I do not run like a man running aimlessly, and I don't fight like a man beating the air. So playing to win is going to take focus. He goes, no, I beat my body and I make it my slave. So playing to win is going to take self-discipline. And he goes, I do all that so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize. Paul says, play to win. Get up off the couch and get into the game. Paul is saying the same thing that Jesus said. If you want to get well, get up. How do we do that? Well, playing to win, like Paul said, is going to take focus. It takes focus. What are you aiming at? When it comes to dating, if you're dating right now, like what are you aiming at? When it comes to marriage or parenting or your career, what are you aiming at? If you can't answer that question, if you can't articulate and see the bullseye, you're not going to hit it. And Jesus goes, I can help you come to the right conclusions and give you the right bullseyes and the right goals for all the most important parts of your life. Playing to win is going to take focus. Playing to win is going to take self-discipline, and that's just true of everything. Right? If you want to lose the weight, you've got to eat differently. If you want to gain the muscle, you got to go to the gym. If you want to get an A, you've got to hit the books. And it's not different with a life with Jesus. It takes self-discipline. Like that's the entire point of the 35-day challenge we just did together, to build new disciplines into our life. Playing to win takes focus and self-discipline, and it takes training. It takes time. You won't lose the weight or gain the muscle overnight. You've got to go through a training program for a consistent, sustained amount of time. In the same way, a life of following Jesus is like a spiritual training program. It's going to take time, but I promise you're going to see change. See, I believe that Jesus is looking at us and he is asking us the same question that he asked the crippled man. And he's specifically asking any of us who feel defeated, or those of us who are crossing our fingers and waiting for our problems to fix themselves, or any of us who are pointing fingers and blaming other people for our problems. He's asking us, do you want to get well? And if the answer is yes, then he's going, okay then, if you want to get well, get up. Get off the bench and get into the game. Jump off the couch and jump back into the most important areas and relationships of your life, and do it with focus and self-discipline and training. Let me give you a few ideas of how you can kind of get off the couch and get off the bench and jump back into the game and play to win. All right, the first one applies to everyone listening and everyone in this room right now. If you want to play to win, jump back into church around here, right? And some of you, let me explain this, because some of you are going well, I'm here, aren't I? So I did jump back in. It's yeah, kind of, but that's not quite what I'm talking about. Flatirons was never meant to be a show. It was never meant, I know it looks that way sometimes. We certainly have our fair share of haters who believe this place is like a weekly concert and a TED Talk. But that's not the heart behind our church. It's not the goal of our church. The goal of our church is to hear from Jesus and form community with each other. Our church is called Flatirons Community Church. That's the goal of this place. Is to team up so that we can engage in focus and self-discipline and training together. The goal is to get encouragement from one another and then get guidance from Jesus so that we can play to win. And what we do on the weekend, it's just like our weekly timeout. Let's huddle up, let's connect with each other, let's encourage each other, and then let's hear the words of Jesus and put them into practice so that we can get back out on the field and play to win. So that's one thing you could do if you want to start playing to win. Jump back into church here or for the first time. And I don't just mean attend. I mean hear the words of Jesus and put them into practice. And then get involved in community here. Join a small group or start a watch party at home in your house or volunteer somewhere. These are all awesome ways to make a big church feel small so that you can be in community. Jump back into church. But then I want to give us two more ways that we can get off the bench and jump back into the game and play to win. And there are two options for two very specific groups of people. It's two things that we're about to do together here at Flatirons that I'm very excited about. All right? The first one is this. For the first time in about 4 years, here at Flatirons, we are going to roll out a young adult ministry again, finally. All right? I'm pumped for this. Ambry Sheehan is our young adult director. Christian Cambier is our associate director. A lot of you know these people already. They're awesome leaders and pastors. And for the last few months, Ambry and Christian have been working their tails off to design a young adult ministry that is created both by and for the young adults in our community who call this place home. And so they've been getting focus groups together, and they're asking questions like, what do you need from us as your church? What can we do for you and provide for you? And they're living in community with these people. And I've had the honor and privilege of getting to be involved in all of that. And the number one thing that we've learned from you is that the average young adult here at our church is dying for two things. All right, the first thing you're dying for is you want to get connected in meaningful relationship with other people who are following Jesus and playing to win. And the second thing is you need the freedom to ask some really big, almost existential questions about faith and Jesus and life in general. And so together we're going to make that happen here. All right, our young adult ministry is designed for anyone ages 22 to 30. Right away, some of you are going well, dang it, I'm 20, and I'm in college, so what is there for me? Well, a few weeks ago, Jim brought Carl up on the stage, if you remember that. He's our new Next Gen pastor. Next Gen means cradle to college, and so if you're in that college age range right now, I'm asking you to trust me and hang tight. Carl is actively working on a college ministry. You'll hear about it soon. But the reason we picked 22 to 30 is because after talking with you, we realized there's a unique challenge to this age range, and specifically in this generation. It's like when you're in college and when you're in school, community is built into the thing, right? You go to class with each other, and you live in the same house or the same dorm with each other, and there's events and social clubs and parties and fraternities, but then you graduate and you have your diploma in hand and you enter into the workforce, and all your friends go back to their home states or they go get jobs at different places, and almost overnight, you're suddenly the only person your age that you know, or you're the only person your age in your office. It's a shock to the system. And then on top of that, once you're done with school, you're largely done with people teaching you things you need to learn. And so you've got a diploma, you know a lot about civil engineering, but no one has trained you in or taught you how to live the good life with Jesus. And so you get this double whammy where you're suddenly trying to figure out your own worldview and identity and faith and your place in the world, and you're trying to figure it out alone because you lost your community. And if that's you, and you're a young adult, and that resonates with you, then I'm going to ask you a blunt and direct question. Do you want to get well? And if the answer is yes, you need to get up, and you need to get involved in our young adult ministry. At all of our campuses after this, you can head out to the lobby, look for people wearing these shirts. It's that color with that logo. These are our young adults, and you can go out and get more information from them or just talk to them and meet a friendly face. But here's the biggest thing that you need to know if you're a young adult and you want to get involved. You have to clear your calendar right now for Thursday evening, November 11th. All right, you can scan that QR code to get more information, to get connected. But November 11th is our first official young adult gathering, and you just can't miss it. All right, we're going to get together at the Denver campus. You're going to meet Amber. You're going to meet Christian. I'm going to teach at the thing, and we are going to begin honoring our promise to you, which is we promise to give you community that you can thrive in, and we promise to tackle life's biggest questions together. November 11th, 7 p.m. at the Denver campus. Do not miss that. All right, one more thing, and then we'll pray and get out of here. And this one's for the men in the room. All right, for the men in the room, if you want to get up off the couch and jump back into the game, then to put it bluntly, you need to commit to being here for the next 5 weeks. And that is because, again, for the first time in years, next weekend, Jim is going to kick off our Man series. It's 5 weeks long. It's called Man Down, Man Up, and it's basically an extension of what we started talking about today. What I mean by that is the fact is for most of us men, life has knocked us down, right? Marriage, parenting, career, dating, whatever, you name it, it laid us out flat. Honestly, that's just the reality of being a human being. And oftentimes, it's especially reality for men. But for the next 5 weeks throughout our Man series, we're basically asking the same question that Jesus asked us today. Like, do you want to get well? I can't answer that for you. You're your own man. Do you want to get well? Do you want your marriages to get well? Do you want your parenting to get well? Do you want your sex life to get well? Do you want your spiritual, emotional health to get well? Like for the men in the room, does anybody want to win this thing? Do you want to lead or bulldoze? And do you want to protect or infect? Do you want to lift your people up or tear them down? Like, do you want to step into healthy, God-designed masculinity, or are you going to mail that one in too? And I know that our world says that masculinity is toxic. I just call BS, right? There are some versions of, I wouldn't call it masculinity, but there's like distortions of masculinity that are unhealthy. Jesus would call them unhealthy. But at the same time, God-designed, Christ-centered masculinity is not toxic. And actually, I believe that the world is waiting on it. I believe our world is waiting for men who have submitted their lives to the authority of Jesus Christ, who can then turn and face the world and the people around them in real strength. And real strength, according to Jesus, looks like laying down our desires and our impulses and our selfishness and our egos, laying down our lives in the act of self-sacrifice so that we can provide for and protect and lift up the people under our care. That doesn't sound toxic to me. That sounds like Jesus. And so men, I know that life has knocked us down, but the truth is that the people who depend on us, all right, our wives and our girlfriends and our kids and our employees, you name it, they're not giving us a pass, rightfully so. They shouldn't. Instead, they are waiting for us to get up. The story of Jesus is a story about getting knocked down and 3 days later getting back up. So be like your king and get back up. The world is waiting for us to re-engage, and our people are waiting for us to get back into the game, and they're waiting for our masculinity to become more Christ-like. So men, I don't care what you've got going on, cancel your Sunday plans. And show your people that you are dedicated to figuring out how to be a more Christ-like man. And just get up off the couch and get into church, you and your people. Get here for the next 5 weeks, no excuses. Because if you want to get well, you have to get up. Flatirons, I want to leave you with this. All right, because I know a lot of you, and I know our stories, and I know a lot of us have suffered defeats. Right? And we're slipping into this mentality of defeat, and we're starting to play like we've already lost. But at the same time, we follow a God who takes death and he turns it into life, and he takes defeat and he turns it into victory. And he did not give you a spirit of defeat, for God gave us not a spirit of fear, but of power and love and self-control. And so in that spirit of power and love and self-control, get up, get back in the game, and let's start playing to win again. Amen. Let's pray. God, thank you for this message today. Thank you for what Jesus is teaching us in all of our hearts right now. God, there are a lot of us who feel defeated. We felt defeated for a long time. Maybe we didn't even really know how to pinpoint it. And today we're going, oh yes, defeat. I feel defeated. And once you get into that mentality of defeat, you just start playing like you've already lost, and then you just start actually losing. And so for any of us who are sitting in this room or any of our campuses or watching online, and if we feel defeated, God, I pray that you would encourage us. You didn't give us a spirit of defeat. You gave us a spirit of power and love and self-control. And you love us enough to say, hey, I'm not going to fix your problems for you. I'm not your helicopter parent. Instead, I'm going to heal your soul. I'm going to heal your spirit. And when it comes to the life around you and the relationships around you, I'm going to tell you to get up and follow me. And you're going to see change. God, would you encourage us to live that way? Would you encourage us to pick up our mats and start walking and start following you and get back into the game? God, for any of the young adults who are listening to this right now, I'm thankful for this ministry coming up. God, would you put in their heart that desire to have that kind of community and the desire to ask those kind of questions and figure life out, God? Would you get them there November 11th? And then for any of the men who are listening to this right now, or even the ones who didn't listen to this, God, I pray for those men, like, would you give them something in their heart and their head that's like, maybe I should go back to church next week. God, your version of masculinity is not toxic, it's healing. And it's a balm to the world around us. But we've got to place ourselves under your authority, or we end up doing damage. So for the next 5 weeks, would you get the men in this room to lean in and to listen to you and to place ourselves under your authority so that we can heal the world around us? God, I love you very much. I thank you for all the stuff we have coming around the corner here at Flatirons. I thank you for today and this room and this people. And ultimately, I thank you for Jesus Christ. And it's in his holy name that I pray. Amen.